there. It is going to access and show. You can access all the details on register click. It will collect all the details. That is with reference of form. Any specific details with reference of individual IDs, you can access that. So that is very important, and already we learned this. Only the new concept here is how to collect all the data from the form, right? Now, one more very major option is, another very major concept is validating template form. Validating template driven form. This is very important. Validating template driven form. Actually, what is validation? So technically, validation is the process of verifying user input. Verifying user input. It is the process of verifying user input. That means when user inputs any value, we have to verify the value that user inputs. Why you are verifying? Why you are verifying the user input value? Why to verify the user input value? Validation is required to ensure that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into database. That is the main concept. Validation is required to make sure that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into database. Contradictory means the data, the type which it is expecting, and the type that you are sending. The data type that you are sending and data type that it is expecting, both are not matching. It is expecting number, you are sending string, then it is called contradictory. Unauthorized means it is not authorized to handle that, but you are sending. That means it is asking, I can allow only 7, but you are saying 10. That is unauthorized. That means range, limits, length, all these comes under what? Unauthorized, right? So validation is very, very important. Validation is used in every web technologies while working with the forms to make sure that they send exactly the data that we are expecting. Actually, JavaScript, jQuery, like Angular, React like things are very popular in handling validations client side. Generally, validations are handled both client side as well as server side. That means Java, .NET, PHP, Python, these technologies do server side validation. But validation on server side is a lengthy process. It will take more time. Why it is a lengthy process, I will tell you. Just simple point actually. So why it is a lengthy process? Because here I will show you. Suppose we have some data. We have some data here. Database is there. So in a database, we are having some data. In a database, we are having some data. This is database. Now in this data, actually, we have some name and age like details. Now, directly, we don't interact with the data. The interaction with the data is done by server side. Server side technologies like JSP, PHP, ASP, Python, all these technologies, they are responsible for communicating with the database and interacting with the data. And actually from client side, this client side, so the data is sent by using a form. By using a form, we send the data. That means here we have a form, and by using the form, we send the data. Like we have name, we have age, like this with details. Now, generally that information should come to web server. Actually, we will have a web server, and we have generally one more concept called API. Usually what happens when a user submits this information from client side, that information comes to web server. From web server, it will go to API. From API, it goes to the server side business logic. From here, it will try to insert. But while inserting, they enter wrong details. That means they entered age as a string. Then what happens here is when they do that, this data is sent to web server from their application server interface and from their server side logic. And from server side, it is sent into database. But whatever age you entered is wrong, it is not as per the requirement, then database will reject. When database rejects, that information come to server. Server will collect that information, why it rejected, and it will prepare some details and send to API, through API to web server. From web server, it will come to client. This is very lengthy process. Every time going to server, verifying on server is lengthy process. That is the reason we ask our developers to verify those details at the client side only. Client side. But we don't depend on only client side. We have to use both client side as well as server side. Client side means what? When user enters the details, those details are verified only in the browser there itself. After verifying the details in the browser, if all details are fine, then it will send to web server. That is good. That is good. But we cannot depend on that. Why? We cannot depend on that. We need to verify server side also. Why we cannot depend on client side validation? Why we cannot depend on client side validation? Because client side validation is done by using JavaScript, jQuery, Angular, or React, which will not work if JavaScript is disabled on browser. If JavaScript is disabled on browser, these validations will not work. For security reasons, sometimes people may disable JavaScript on their browser. Then client side validations will not fire up. Then what we have to do, if validations are not handled client side, then we have to handle server side. We need to manage them server side. So you need both client side as well as server side. In many interviews, people ask this question, like, if JavaScript is disabled, will Angular work? Or will React work? Will Angular work if JavaScript is disabled? That is a silly question, because any JavaScript technology cannot work without JavaScript enabled on browser. Compulsory, it must have JavaScript enabled, otherwise it will not work. Angular cannot work, React cannot work, or any technology cannot work. The problem with validation is client side, they may be disabled. If they are disabled, you have to handle both client side as well as servers. But if it is working client side, it is very good. Why? Because it reduces burden on server. So why you need client side validations? Client side validation. That means validations can be handled. So A, client side, and B, server side. So now important is client side validations. Client side validations in JavaScript and jQuery are handled are handled by using lot of lot of functions. Lot of functions. You have to use lot of functions for validation. Client side validations in JavaScript and jQuery are handled by lot of functions. That means they include string functions. They include the concept of math functions. So they include the concept of array functions. All these type of ready-made functions are required to handle. Lot of functions are required in JavaScript jQuery. You need to use them. Now, how to verify whether a value entered in a text box or not? In general, JavaScript, how to verify whether a value entered in a text box or not? Generally, what we do is, for that, we simply use an option that means if if text box value is empty, we have to verify like this. If it is empty, that means it is not supplied with any value. How to verify whether the value is between 8 to 10 characters? How to verify whether the value is in 8 to 10 characters? Actually, what you can do is you can use regular expressions, or you can use the functions length. If length is greater than 8, length is less than 10, that means it is between 8 to 10. That is how we verify. Lot of functions. How to verify whether the value you entered is a number or not? In JavaScript and jQuery, how to verify whether the value you entered is a number or not? So you have a function called isNaN. IsNaN is a JavaScript function which is used to verify whether it is a number or not. Like this, lot of functions we have to write to verify the values. But what is the speciality of Angular is actually Angular is provided with Angular is provided with validation services. Angular is provided with validation services. Angular have ready-made validation services. What is advantage is these validation services can use HTML and validations and verify values without writing much logic. So validation service can use HTML validations and verify the values without writing much logic. What are HTML validations? What are HTML validations? HTML validations are, we have required, we have min length, so we have max length, we have pattern, we have like what else, min, we have max, so we have number, we have email, we have URL. These are all validations. That means if you say input type email, automatically it will verify emails. If you say input type number, it will not allow to enter a string. So these are all HTML validations, and Angular can use these validations, and it provides validation services. What is advantage of a validation service? So validation service is built in with validation functions. Validation functions. You have to just use them and handle. And very important, the validation properties, the validation properties of Angular validation service are the properties. We have a lot of properties like, so are classified, actually they are classified into two groups. We have form state validation, form state validation, and we have input state validation. We have form state validation and we have input state. We have two types of validation, form state, another one input. Now, what is difference between form state and input state validation services? Actually, form state validation services are used to verify all fields in a form. That is the purpose. Form state validation services are used to verify all fields in the form. It is not individual. That means it will verify all the fields in the form. For example, generally you have a registration form. When you can successfully submit a form? When you can successfully submit a form, all the fields are correct. If any one field is invalid, you cannot. That means now we have to verify all fields now. How you can verify all fields at a time? Just now you saw that. How to verify, how to get all fields from a form at a time? We have ng form now. Ng form is going to get all the fields. So you can verify all the fields by using what? Ng form. Actually, form state validation services. So you can access from ng form reference. You can access from ng form reference. And what are those validation services? We have service name, we have property name, and its type, and its purpose. You can say its description. So what is a service name? Actually, so many form state validation services are there. We have ng. So service name is ng pristine. The property name is pristine. And its type is Boolean. All types are Boolean only. Description. Pristine means it returns true. If form is, that means if no field in the form, is modified. No field in the form is modified. That means you opened a form and there is no field which is modified in the form. That means there are no modifications happened inside the form. For example, suppose you opened your account details in some website. When you opened account details in that website, they will give edit account details. You selected edit account details. In that edit account details, there is a save button. Means after making editing, you have to save. Save button is not working. Means what? Same, but save button is there, but it is not working. Means what? Save button is there, but it is not working. Means what? Means you are not done. You haven't done any changes. Am I right? That is pristine. That is pristine. How save button knows that you haven't done any changes? Because it can verify is the form pristine or not. If the form is pristine, that means no changes made. If no changes made, it will not open the save button. It will not enable the save button, or it will not display the save button. It can display the save button if any modification is happened. If any modification is happened, in any field modification happened, then it is called ng dirty. The property name is dirty. Dirty is also a boolean. That means it returns true. It returns true if any one field, any one field in the form is modified. If any one field in the form is modified, then it will return true. It will return true. That is what dirty. We have pristine, we have dirty. We have another option, ng valid. So this is defined by using valid. Valid. So, and very important is this is also a boolean, and it returns true. It returns true when all fields in the form are valid. All fields in the form are valid. In the form are valid. That means all are valid. There are no problems in that. Then it is okay. That means when you can submit, I have a submit button, but that submit button is not working. Why submit button is not working? Because there might be some problems. So if there is any problem in the field, some are not valid, then it will not enable. That means, so if all fields are valid, it can submit. If any one field is invalid, then it returns ng invalid. This is invalid. It is also a boolean. Actually it returns true when any one field, if any one field is invalid. If any one field is invalid, it will return invalid. So we have pristine, we have dirty, we have valid, we have invalid, and we have ng submitted. ng submitted, and this is what? This is submitted, and this is also boolean, and it is nothing but it returns true. It returns true when form is submitted. You can say it returns true on form submit. On form submit, it will return true. On form submit, it is going to return true. That's what it is going to do. This is submitted. These are all form state validation services. How to access them? Syntactically simple. So how to define a form? You know, form is defined as hash. What is it? FRM register is equal to what? ng form. Then you can simply use FRM register dot valid. You can use FRM register dot pristine. So like FRM register dot invalid like this. These are all the validation services. These are form state services. Form state services means they are defined at form level. It is related to all fields. Here, what is problem? The problem is nothing but you don't know which field is invalid. You don't know which field is invalid. You will just put a red mark, but you will not allow to submit, but you will not clearly tell where is the problem. If you want to clearly tell in which field there is a problem, then we have to use input state validation, another concept called input state. First, let's see form state validation. Very simple. Now what I want is, for this form, roughly for this form we will keep some validation, right? Yeah, validation is nothing but, you don't need to write anything. Use HTML validations. HTML validations. So name required. Required is a validation. So age is also required. Okay, age is also required. And for username we are giving min length. Min length is 4, minimum 4 characters, and max length, I given max length as 10. 4 to 10 characters username can be. And age is required. And very important here, by default number indicates it cannot be a string. That means number type is also a validation. Now what I want is, if these two fields are enough, that means these two fields are enough. We have name and age. These two are enough as of now. Now, for example, now you see here, I don't want this register button to work if any field is invalid. I don't want the register button to work if any field is invalid. Then simply you put like this. So for this register button, button can have a disabled property. When it should be disabled? When form is invalid. That means frm register dot invalid. That's it. frm register dot invalid if it is invalid. And you can see now, you can see here, if register form is invalid, currently you see it is not working. You see register is not working. Why register is not working? I am unable to submit register. Why? Because username is required. Okay, I am entering username. Age is required. I am entering age. Now still it is invalid, because according to validation, username must be 4 characters. Now I entered 4 characters. Now it is working. Suppose I am not entering age, then it will not work again. I am entering the age. Now it is working fine. Now the point here is, how do user knows where is the problem? Okay, it is not working, but where is the problem? You can add lot of effects. How user knows where is the problem? For that we need clean messages like username required, age required, mobile required, name must be string, age must be number. For that we need another concept we call input state validation. This is which state? Form state validation. Form state validation. Here, see, suppose until or unless, suppose I will add one more button here. I am adding one more button. Suppose this is having value. Value is some value John. Suppose there is some value to display inside that. Some value to display inside that. So that is the value, but it is configured as model. Na? So model cannot have a direct value statically. You cannot have a value even with the property. You see, it is not having a value. Default value you cannot add into that. That means it is suppose string type. I'm adding some John. That means that is the value that is defined inside it. And you can see the value property of that particular text box. So it is unable to display any value inside it. Why? Because those values are defined by using another technique, which I will show you in the next point. We will learn about editing the forms. Now the point here is, here we are adding a button, and let's keep the button as save. This save button should not display, until or unless they do some modification in this. By default, the save button is there. I don't want to display the save button until or unless they type something. Then what we have to do? So generally you see emails also, before sending, they give an option, save draft. Am I right? They give that option, save draft. That means before you click send, up to now what you typed, you can save it. But that save should work until or unless some modification have been done. This save draft should not display at all. How to remove it? How to remove a button from the page? Come on. Removing element from any page is done with ngIf now. Right? ngIf is used for adding and removing the elements, right? ngIf, when it should be added, when any modification happened. If any modification happened, what it will return? If any modification happened, which property verifies modification happened? Dirty. Dirty indicates modified. Or you can say not pristine. Not pristine means dirty. Pristine means not modified. Dirty means modified. When to display this? When it is modified. Modified means based on which property? FRM register dot what? Dirty. If dirty is true, then display. If will return true, that means you see currently here saved draft. So saved draft is not displayed. I click inside and I entered something. Now the save will come. I done some modification, then it will display. Everything is valid. Now it is fine. It is displayed. Such validations are important. Remember, this is verifying all the fields in the form. That means any field modified, I click age, any field modified, save will come. That means we can hide the elements, we can disable, enable the elements depending on entire form. You can use pristine, you can use dirty, you can use valid or invalid. Submitted indicates have you submitted the form or not. Submitted will return true or false. Actually, you can try printing all these messages. You can clearly see. Roughly, I'm giving. Actually, you can print all the messages and check. Suppose pristine. Pristine. How to get pristine? To get pristine, I will use FRM register dot what? Pristine. Okay. In the next line, I will put dirty. So, and here I am just adding FRM register dot dirty. And in the next line, we have valid. So valid. And you can see FRM register dot valid. FRM register dot valid. So we have another one invalid. So invalid, and same I am defining FRM register invalid. Means just I want to show you that these are all what type? Boolean type. Another one is submitted. So FRM register dot submitted. These are all the values. Now you can see it is going to return those values there. And actually those values are true and false. You see pristine true, that means not modified. Dirty is false, that means it is not modified. And valid is false. Invalid is true because required is not matching. Na? Submitted is not true. Submitted also false because we haven't submitted. Let's enter So name, now you can see pristine false, dirty true. And you entered something, valid is still false because now valid is true, invalid is false, submitted is false. When I click register, it is submitted. Okay, that means now it returns submitted true. That means it will verify whether you submitted. Generally what we do, we put message, if submitted true, that means registered successfully. So that's such messages we will display by using these Boolean values, right? And not only that, we have a lot of effects also to display. For example, I want this form to be in red color if it is invalid, and to turn to green color if it is valid. Now what we learned, dynamically how to apply styles. We learned dynamically how to apply the classes, right? How do we apply the classes dynamically? Let's see. Let's go to template form CSS. In template form CSS, I will put here a simple option. I'm creating as a class as invalid style. Invalid style will put a background color as red color, but not dark red. We will keep a light red color here. Light red color here. And we have another class. What is it? Valid style. Valid style. So background color. So green. And this also we will put a light green color. That is how we are displaying. Now, how to apply these classes according to situation? Now you will go to the template form. So here, this is the form. Now to this, we will apply. So for this, we need to apply a class dynamically. Then we have to use ng class binding. How to turn on and off? That means if it is valid, valid style should apply. If it is invalid, invalid style should apply. Then we learned that classes are applied in 3 ways: string reference, array reference, and object. In object reference, we will define the key, that is class name. What is the class name? Valid style. Valid style. It uses a Boolean value, true or false, when it should apply if form is valid. That means what we have to do, frm register dot what? Valid. Then valid style will apply. Comma, another one. What is it? Invalid style. Invalid style. When it should apply? When frm register is invalid. These are the effects we are applying. General, I will apply a class. So padding 2. So that is enough. Now you can see it will display in this way. Now you can see the form appearance is red. And I am filling the details inside the form. I am filling the details. And you can see it turns to green. If anything is invalid, like it is not having 4 characters, it is red. Minimum 4 characters, it is green. If age is not valid, so it is valid. Suppose age I entered, so trying to remove something and entered something else, it's working. Because we haven't given any range, we can give range also, min and max. This is complete form state validation. But is it good? It is not. It's good. It is required, but it is not having more clarity. That means it is not clearly saying where is the problem, right? It is showing some messages. It is able to enable or disable. So this is a simple example for form state validation. Example is this. Just we have template form dot component dot what? HTML. This is only one simple example for that. It is an example just to understand and how do we define the classes dynamically. Actually, we need CSS file also, na? Template form dot component dot CSS. The CSS will come here. It just have 2 styles, valid style, another one invalid. Now, another important is actually how to define validation at every control level that we call as input state validation. Input state validation services. Input state validation services is nothing but what is the concept of input state validation service? Simple. Actually, input state validation, it verifies, it verifies every field in the form individually and reports the error and reports the error and reports the error. That is important. Verifies every field in the form and reports the error. Here also we have, so the input state validation services are, we have ng pristine. It is what? Pristine. We have ng dirty. This is dirty. We have ng valid. This is valid. We have ng invalid. This is invalid. So we have ng touched. We have like touched. So we have ng untouched. We have like untouched. And we have ng errors. So we have like errors. These are all the input state validations. Here few extra. What are those extra? Touched, untouched, another one, errors. Remember, these are related to field. Is the field valid or invalid? Is that touched or untouched? It is going to verify that. For example, let's see now. This is input state. That means syntactically how we define input. Syntactically how we define input type is equal to text. So it is defined with what? Required. So hash what? Username ng model. So it is having ng model. Suppose now here we are defining like this. So that is username dot invalid. We can use like username dot what touched. All these things we can handle. I will explain what is the point here now. What is advantage? Every field you can individually verify now. We can verify every field and we can report the problem in every field. We can configure the problems in every field. Let's see. Now I will go to this template form. We will remove these classes here related to validation. Yeah. And let's put here simple. This button disabled form state I am removing currently. Just I will keep only input state related things so that you can handle. So now here, what is the required? What is the field we are having? Username is required. Age is also required. These are the two options we are having. Now, how to report these problems? How to report the problem that name is required, age is required? Just simple. We have to put a data definition here. We will see here we will write a simple message class as text danger. We will put a message here as user name required. Now, similarly, below this, another data definition here, class as what? Text danger. And here we say age required. So like this, we are defining username required, age required. Now you can see those are displayed there. They are displayed there. Now I am typing something inside. So when we are typing something inside, it should disappear because we are satisfying now. That means now what we should happen, this message should display only when username is invalid. Then what we have to do, we have to just use, what is it? Ng if. This time it depends on what? Username. Username is invalid. That's it. Here also you need to define what is it? Ng if. Ng if username, not username. This is related to age. Age is what? Invalid. Now you can see that it is going to display like this. Now it is showing it, and I will click here and I try to enter something. Now it is fine. Age, I am entering some age. Now it is fine. I am not entering anything, then it will display. This is good. Every field you are verifying, but still here a lot of problems are there. We will handle that. As of now, it's working fine. And it is good. You are verifying and displaying. But remember, when I opened, by default, error messages are there. This is not great. This is not great. That means you can't display a registration form with all errors without he started anything. Right? That means now what should happen when these errors must be displayed? Situation. What is when this error should display? If I click and type inside, I am satisfying now. When this error message need to display, two conditions can be there. One condition is when form is submitted. At the time of submitting the form, if they are not filled, it should display. Another situation, many forms, how they do, user clicks inside username, but without typing, they come out. Then also it should verify. That means now here the point is, I want this for ng if, not only just invalid, it should, invalid means it is invalid. Here we will put an option, condition we will keep. Condition is FRM register dot submitted and username is invalid. That means form is submitted and username is invalid. Both should match na? End means both should match. Here also we are defining same. What is it? FRM register dot what? Submitted and it is invalid. Now initially it will not display those messages to you. You can see initially the messages are not there. When it will display the message, I click on register, form submitted. When form submitted, it should display those details. Right? It is going to display. These error messages we will, this sending the data we will see later, not now. Now actually we are just dealing validation here. Now you see here, initially it is not displaying. It is not displaying. When I click on register, then only it is displayed. That is good. And I am typing, now it is okay. I am typing, then it is okay. That is why we need both form state, input state. How you will verify form submitted? So for that, this mechanism. Another technique is there. Another point is, another concept is they clicked inside and they click outside. Is it, what is the state? If they click inside and came outside, what is that state? Is it dirty? Is it dirty? No, dirty means what? The value should be changed. I click inside and came out without doing any changes. Then it is called touched. It is called touched. Touched. They never went there. Then it is untouched. They went there and came out. They done some modification. Then it is dirty. That means now what we have to define here. I need another logic here. I hope you know how to write the logic now. What is it? The form submitted and it is invalid. This is one condition, parenthesis, or what is the another condition? Another condition is username dot what? Touched. Username is touched and username is invalid. Like this you can define. That is multiple conditions we are adding. That means what does this means now here? Similarly age also. That means here this is one condition, or we have to use another condition. What is it? Age dot touched and age dot what? Invalid. This is the condition. Now what is the point here? You click inside and without typing click outside, then it should display. You click inside, click outside, it should display. That is good. And user is typing the message. It will work on submit also. And it will work, you click inside and click outside, not typing anything. Then it will verify that. Verify. That means now both situations are working. You click directly register, it will display. So, or you click inside that and click outside, it will verify. This looks better because we will not display all messages. We will display only what he touched. These are conditions, multiple conditions. Remember, this is one primary concept of using Angular in real time. That means while one of the main reason of using client-side technologies in any web application is handling client-side validation. Generally, sometimes people give this as a definition. They say, what is the purpose of JavaScript? JavaScript is used for validations client-side. But that is not the only concept of JavaScript or any client-side script. But one of the major reason why we use client-side technologies is to handle validation. That is one of the major reason actually. And in this, you have just seen these options. Now here still problems are there. Why problems are there? For example, for this field, what is the validation for the field required? Suppose I given min length is 4. Now what happens is here, I am using here, you see, I am clicking outside. It says username required. I am entering that. It's still saying username required. Because it is still invalid. And on invalid, it is showing same message. How it can show same message for every error? For every error, message must be different. If required problem, then say required. Min length problem, say name is short. Max length problem, say name is long. Pattern problem, say uppercase required. That means for every error, there must be a different message. For all errors, you cannot put one message. So this is okay. Valid, invalid is okay when you are dealing with single error validation. But it is not okay when you are dealing with multiple validations. If you are dealing with multiple validations, then you need help of another option called errors. This errors is responsible for identifying what is the error. According to the error, it will display the message. If error is required, if error is min length, if error is max length, it can verify that. And for that, we need an object called what? Errors. So remember, whatever you are now learning about validations in form is all Angular 15. Because in Angular 14, some changes are there. That means Angular 14, Angular 13, other some changes are there. In Angular 15, whatever the new features are there, you are directly learning. You are directly learning those features. Those differences I will explain after this topic. What is old, what is new. Currently, you are learning directly with new features all new features you are learning. Now, in that, what are the new techniques, old techniques, how they changed, that I will explain after the topic is finished. Now here we need to add one more. What is it? How to define validation for specific errors. That we'll see in tomorrow session, right? Tomorrow we can finish this and we can go into model driven forms, model driven, right? And we are planning for bootstrap workshop, and you saw that, right? From Thursday onwards it will be 11 to 1. For 3 days it will be a workshop, bootstrap workshop, 11 to 1. For 3 days it will be there. Okay, right? That timings and all tomorrow I will announce again. Okay na? Right. Yeah. It will be both online and offline, right?